William Ruto is a man of the moment, and he likes that. At times when he's excited, he says things he has never processed in his mind, and some of those end up being a political disaster. And we do not want that kind of situation. People pretending to be mourning and calling them heroes. There is no dead hero. When somebody is dead, this is somebody's child. 1,000 is not a small number. It is not a statistic. These are people's children. I just beg the president, do other businesses. We know you are a businessman, but you can do other businesses. Don't do businesses with the bodies of Kenyans. We don't want to bring Kenyans in a coffin.
And you're just in time for Richard Mwenja exclusive. It's always a pleasure to have you on board. Today we're going to discuss a plethora of issues in the world of politics and governance. And who better to help me dissect into the conversation of the day than the only point of call on matters political and governance analysis, former Minister Ruto Arap Kirwa. Welcome on board, sir.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. And I thank God we are alive the second week of March. Yeah.
At least today you got your honey milk so that you're energetic enough to carry through the conversation.
Yes, I will still really request that we repeat this quite often. It makes a lot of difference.
There should be consistency.
Yeah, so that so that energy levels are the right place. Although I know this is because of Ramadan, which I do appreciate.
Did you just have to say that?
I have to, because you see, I can see. It reminds me of the good days of Ramadan. Yep.
Very well. Very recently, we've seen the resignation of Haitian Prime Minister Ariel Henry. And it begs the question, now that he was here in Kenya and they sort of signed a deal with President Ruto, do you consider now that agreement to be sort of null and void, now that the Prime Minister has actually vacated office?
Yeah, you know, if he was a substantial prime minister, that would not have been an issue of legitimacy. But remember, he was a prime minister whose legitimacy was questionable. And after signing that particular agreement, he went and he did not have a chance to get back to the country of origin. This therefore means he could have been a stranger signing agreements with our president, which really begs the question, do we do proper due diligence before we engage in some of the international affairs? And therefore, the resultant effect is that that decision was null and void ab initio, because the foundation on which it stood was shaky. And that foundation now has been confirmed by the fact that the then acting prime minister has not gotten back to the country, and in fact he has resigned, totally resigned from that particular position, pending takeover by any other regime. And the situation precipitated in that country today is, to say the least, unbearable, because you see the fellow called Barbecue, who is now in charge of most of the operations in the country, is the person who encourages cannibalism. You've seen in the social media people eating from bodies burning in fire.
True.
And 4,000 NADCO criminals have been released to the street. The airport cannot be accessed. And America has evacuated their own staff and reinforced the embassy with a number of askaris or soldiers. So if the president wants to deploy any Kenyans to that place, then there should be people of capacity to keep, to maintain, to sort of make peace. You see, there are three stages in terms of peace missions.
Sure.
One is to make peace, to enforce peace, and the third one is to keep peace when peace has been enforced, made. So you keep peace, which has already been, and that's the work of the police. So anything at variance with that particular position, to say the least, is not supposed to take place. So I beg my president, Dr. William Ruto, please don't take our children to Haiti. Let them be taken in another form or wait for the situation to clear. And it is the best time to tell even the Americans who say they were going to give us some billions of shillings that yes, the situation is untenable. In the intervening period, you should prepare to do some basic training so that they know the situation on the ground. In a state of war, we have what we call scanning the environment, where if the conditions are not ripe, you prepare your forces to see how to take care of those conditions.
Reconnaissance.
Yeah, reconnaissance. That is my request to the president, and it's not because of politics. As I've always said, at times we can play politics, but when it comes to lives of individuals, no amount of money can be exchanged for even a single life of a Kenyan.
Right.
Because every Kenyan matters. Yeah.
Sure enough. And glad that you've highlighted that some tier 1 countries are recalling some of their staff, and even those still in Haiti, their security is being beefed up.
Yeah.
And it begs the question, don't you think maybe Kenya is trying to fill the vacuum of now the bigger brother in the room, the good Samaritan, now that even US is now making its way out of Haiti?
Yeah, because, you know, even the former American ambassador, special envoy to Haiti, he has made it clear that a third world country does not have the requisite capacity to take care of the situation in Haiti. You would have expected the US, European Union, or any other of the big brothers to take care of that. Should we, you know, the kind of budget that can be involved in Haiti could be almost double our national budget should the situation deteriorate. And we don't have that kind of capacity. And at times, some of the pledges made by America or any of these countries do not meet the targeted areas in good time. So in the intervening period, what do we do? But also, Richard, let us ask ourselves, fundamentally, why is there instability in Haiti? It is something that has been caused by the Americans and other institutions, other countries of similar nature, because of the minerals in Haiti, including gas and other precious minerals. So this is a war on a commercial scale. This is a commercial war. This is a war economy. And we are entering a war economy when we are given just 14 billion shillings. We think this is a lot of money. It's like being paid 2,000 shillings to get into a situation in a market that is burning. You may lose your face, you may lose everything, and what will cost you to do what we call plastic surgery may be 2 million, and you are given 2,000 to risk. So it's not worth. I just beg the president, do other businesses. We know you are a businessman, but you can do other businesses. Don't do businesses with the bodies of Kenyans. We don't want to bring Kenyans in a coffin.
The cost of indemnity is too high.
It's too high, and it is immoral to do what he is doing. It is immoral. If he's a true Christian, let him refrain from hate. Yeah, there are other ventures he can get into, and those ventures is allowed because Kenyans decided that he's the chief executive of this country. So whatever he's doing, Kenyans said, we trust him. We don't trust the other team.
Very well.
So their trust is going now to be tested by this issue of Haiti.
With regards to the government's commitment to deploy Kenyan police to war on Haiti, from where you sit, do you consider Kenya to be exaggerating its ability, sort of illusion? Are we punching above our weight on this issue?
It would have been okay if the country had some peace to keep. But this is a war-torn country. This is a country that really is not even war-torn. It is in the middle of chaos. So Kenyans should also understand that there are many other things that can be done, but you cannot enter a situation where you are not able to get out. You see, when you get into a state of war, you must have an exit strategy and the capacity to move out. Because at times when you get into a situation of war, you may not have a chance to get out of it. You'll be finished inside there. So any country that gets into that particular situation should have a backup strategy. How do we get out should there be a problem? Now we do not have a backup strategy on how to exceed a state of war. Who is going to do the backup? Have Americans agreed to that particular extent that if there is any problem, we are going to do backup for the 1,000 policemen and women?
Sure.
These are some of the fundamental issues that the Kenya Kwanza regime must be able to explain to us. And others saying language is not important. Language is very important, especially when you are going to be kept to protect certain installations and what they call security buildings. Mm-hmm. Now, if you do not understand the local language, how are you going to deal with the situation? Mm-hmm. If you understand the local language and you have another language that the locals don't understand, you are in a very advantageous position, mm-hmm. because you can command even in Kiswahili, but the language of the locals you must understand so that you know what are they telling you. They may actually be telling you to lie down, mm-hmm. and you are standing. And if you are able to lie down, they would have not dealt with you. Mm-hmm. Or if they are telling you to throw away their gun, mm-hmm. so that they don't shoot you. And if you do not do anything, they will decimate the entire force. And we do not want that kind of situation. Mm-hmm. People pretending to be mourning, mm-hmm. and calling them heroes. Mm-hmm. There is no dead hero. Mm-hmm. When somebody is dead, this is somebody's child. 1,000 is not a small number. It is not a statistic. These are people's children.
Very well. Yeah. Rightly put there. And moving on swiftly, for a president who has actually profiled himself as sort of a master of all trades and an independent thinker, are you not convinced that maybe even on the issue of police deployment to Haiti, he might be having a master plan, but it is under the carpet, but in the fullness of time, its thunder will strike and you will see maybe he had a plan. Are you convinced he has a master plan around the issue?
Well, if he had a master plan, he would have had a master plan about bottom-up. He has failed miserably because those at the bottom are actually crying, mm-hmm. today. So I don't think, William Ruto is a man of the moment, mm-hmm. and he likes that. At times when he's excited, he says things he has never processed in his mind, mm-hmm. and some of those end up being a political disaster, mm-hmm. in the making. Mm-hmm. I do not trust this. We can risk with fake fertilizer, we can risk with fake promises, mm-hmm. but we cannot risk with the lives of Kenyans.
We cannot risk the life of Kenyans.
Yep.
Shifting gears and now talking matters, the NADCO report. And now that we're talking matters, political disasters in the making. And our question is the NADCO report also one of the political disasters that we could be looking at as a nation? Very recently, the president was presented with a report, and some quarters, even within Azimio, have not really endorsed the report. And from your standpoint as a senior citizen, let me ask you, do you think what was featured in the NADCO report clearly represents the wishes and interest of Kenyans, especially on matters to do with the cost of living?
Well, there are a raft of things that we can say, okay, mm-hmm. it is good, but what is the timing? Uh-huh. What is the timing in the sense that many of those changes they envisage in the Constitution, mm-hmm. including the issue of CDF, the issue of Office of the Prime Cabinet Secretary, true. The issue of official leader of opposition, the issue of gender, mm-hmm. Parity. All those are very important decisions that can assist to improve political discourse, mm-hmm. and improve the environment under which we operate. Mm-hmm. But the main question is, what is different with this kind of BBI? Or isn't it just BBI 2? Mm-hmm. Where the promoter and the initiator is the president himself, mm-hmm. through the article that he wrote to the two speakers of the mm-hmm. parliament to initiate that particular process. Mm-hmm. And therefore, if he is the initiator, the promoter, and the recipient of the report, this issue is going to fall squarely where the BBI 1 ended. Mm-hmm. And this therefore means we are waiting for somebody to go to court and say, this BBI is also a failed project. Mm-hmm. Now, that is one aspect of it. The second aspect is that's why I was talking about the timing. Would it be better for all these changes envisaged in the NADCO report, mm-hmm. to be frozen and to be put under referendum in the next general election, so that the general election will run in tandem with the referendum, and the referendum will be made simple, A and B, or yes and no, so that if Kenyans say yes, we go to the new political dispensation and the new constitutional order, where the person who is number 2 or the second largest in terms of the block of members of parliament takes the official opposition, And he will be going to that referendum not knowing who, whether it's the current president or the incoming president, depending on the results of that particular time. In that way, the wisdom is in terms of saving. The wisdom is in terms of nobody will know who is going to the opposition. Nobody will know who is going to government. That is one aspect of it. The other aspect is the NADCO report has missing in it issues how to address the cost of living. Because this regime has said the cost of living is their preserved area of operation because they have the mandate of the people of Kenya. And therefore, they were not willing to discuss issues or now to deal with the cost of living, including double VAT, where it moved from 8% by the previous regime to 16% by the current regime. Issues of G2G oil supply that came from a source that we do not know under the arrangement that is suspect.
Which you labeled gangster to gangster?
Gangster to gangster. They were calling G2G, government to government. There is no government on the other side. It is just an agent who was operating on behalf of some people.
It was a long con?
It is one of the big cons of this regime. So that is not been addressed. And therefore the cost of living is still high. That Kenyans have to brave the feeling of helplessness.
Very well. Yeah. Now that you've dropped the conversation about the referendum, should the NADCO report be fronted for referendum in the near future, as it is right now? Do you think it will be dead on arrival, or are Kenyans likely to endorse it out of the feeling that it has addressed the bread and butter of their cry?
It depends on the way it will be agitated. It will depend on the way it will be presented to the people. My take is we've got enough time. If we are agreed that these are the main issues, what we should do is to process them, as I said, and freeze them until the next election. We cannot afford a referendum now, not because it's going to be divisive, but in terms of cost. And the other thing is referendum, then after referendum, we go for the next general election. That will be unnecessary, subjecting our people to politicking for such a long period.
Very well.
Remember, inbuilt in that NADCO report is the life of 26 constituencies. Are they going to survive? Because many of them will disappear. Those 26 will disappear unless something is done to review the constituency boundary and the number of constituencies so that the threshold of the number of people who ought to be in a certain constituency is properly re-engineered.
By and large, Eugene Wamalwa, a party leader of DAP Kenya, has sort of not endorsed the NADCO report, saying it did not present the interest, or it didn't actually take keen interest to look into issues affecting Kenyans. Do you take concern with him, and do you believe do you laud his efforts in distancing himself from the report?
Well, I think that's the only honorable thing to do, in the sense that you see this report was done under the environment of mutual mistrust. And what they were doing in the committee was to try as much as possible to build that trust. I don't think they arrived sufficiently at the area they ought to have arrived. After the handshake between Ruto and Raila, I don't think any other details were discussed. Because if you are to look at the letter or at the note or at the issues presented by the president to the speakers of the two houses, it's the same things that were passed. There was nothing new completely. And in fact, even that NADCO report was not important. They would have said, yes, the president has given us this raft of issues to consider, and we discuss, because there is nothing new that was brought by the opposition. And if somebody has any information about that, I would be very glad to hear anything outside what the president has said, which means he had a fixed mind by the time he was giving us the request sending to parliament. He had already had a fixed mind. He was trying to resolve an issue, and he knew the best way to resolve the issue is possibly to make peace with Raila.
Well enough. There you have it from the firebrand and powerhouse himself, former Minister Kipruto Arap Kiro. He has been dissecting on a number of issues, starting from the government's commitment to deploy Kenyan officers to the war-torn Haiti. We've also crossed over and looked at the National Dialogue Committee report, which was presented to President Ruto, and what is likely to come out of it in the fullness of time, and what that means to you as a leader and also to you as a taxpayer and a citizen at large. We shall be rolling out such conversations that are of interest to the public every week, so it is up to you to really get glued on this channel, and particularly on Richard Mwenja Exclusive and Business Glide. You definitely will be in for a comprehensive analysis of all you need to know in the world of politics, governance, and economy. It's actually a pleasure to always have you on board, and I wait to see you on our next edition. Enjoy the rest of your viewing.